If all the members of the committee would take their seat, I think we've got a quorum. Quorum. Your proxy. Hold that vote open, please.
Yeah, all right, good job.
Wait a minute. Linwood's not here. We're-
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, first on the sign-up sheet, we have Delegate Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Adams, you have House Bill 2411.
I do,
And
Mr.
is there
Chairman.
is there an amendment to that?
An amendment in the nature of a substitute, yes.
Okay, can we distribute that substitute, please? Senator Ruff moves and Senator Marsden seconds. Adoption of the substitute. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Delegate Adams, this is identical, except I believe it's actually now identical to Senator Chafin's bill,
That is correct.
with an amendment that they put on the bill in the House having to do with a very specific and limited FOIA exemption. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Is there any opposition to this now? If not, there's a motion properly seconded to report the bill. Please open the roll.
Nine ayes, 0 nays.
Okay. Is that all you have?
That is all.
Thanks, Delegate
Thank you,
Adams.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we can just back up for a minute. Can I have a motion to reconsider the vote by which we passed the substitute in 2411? Please open the roll. All right, could we have an amended motion to report the bill and re-refer it to Senate Finance? Motion properly seconded to adopt the bill, to report the bill and re-refer to Senate Finance. Please open the roll. Thank you. Trying to move too fast.
Nine ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you. Delegate Krizik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
How are you?
Pretty good. This is HB 2009.
House Bill 2009.
Yes, sir. So what this does is we've amended it to the process, but it establishes a ranked listing of the Virginia land conservation projects. So when they come to appropriations or to Senate Finance in December, before they ask for the money, they tell us what they're going to spend it on instead of the other way around. And it's something we wanted to do in the appropriations, and it's come out of uncontested from our side.
Okay. It makes sense to me. Is there any questions of Delegate Krizik on this bill? Prezak, I'm sorry. Any questions?
It's okay.
Can I just make sure there's no opposition? No opposition. There's a motion by Senator Mason to report. Is there a second? Motion properly seconded to report the bill. Please open the roll. Thank you.
10 ayes, 0 nays.
Delegate Ferris, I don't see. Oh, okay. Delegate Hodges for Delegate Ferris. You were after Delegate Ferris anyway, so come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's handle Delegate Ferris's, which is House Bill 2755.
All right, House Bill 2755.
Yes, sir. House Bill 2755 requires that the use of real property for open space land shall conform to the official comprehensive plan for the area in which the property is located. It's my understanding that this simply codifies the same language in two parts of the code that deal with conservation easements.
Where did this come from? Do you know, Delegate Hodges?
Wish I knew, Mr.
there
Chairman.
anybody-
This is new to me.
Do you have anybody to
Delegate-
speak to it by any
Delegate
chance?
Ferris is out sick.
Well, I had a question, and perhaps there's somebody from the agency, and I don't know if this was an agency bill, but if you adopt this language, does that mean, based upon the new language you've put in, does that mean the use of the easement has to change every time the comp plan changes?
Well, that would be a question for council, I believe, Mr. Chairman. I'm not quite sure.
Can,
Are you certain? Dave?
I can't speak for certain, Mr. Chairman, but I don't believe that would be the case.
And the reason I ask that is because it says shall conform. And if it does not conform to the comp plan, it is then in violation. What happens? What do you do? I mean, the statute before said it had to be in accord with the comp plan at the time the
See
easement
that.
was put in place. So now are we changing easements every time? You update a comp plan fairly regularly. I don't know the answer. I just wish somebody did.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I have two thoughts, which is, one, the current language in the code actually invalidates the easement if it's not in conformity with the comprehensive plan. So this is actually more permissive than that. And the other thing is the comprehensive plan probably wouldn't interfere with contracts like an easement that are, separately negotiated.
Well, then does this overrule a contract? I mean, it's mandatory language. That's the only reason I'm asking.
You fix that.
All right, is there anybody like to speak to it? Nikki, will you want to speak to it?
Oh, there you go.
So, Mr. Chairman, the only thing I can add is what this bill is doing is conforming the language of the Conservation Easement Act to the existing language of the Open Space Land Act. So the Open Space Land Act is the act under which publicly held easements like VOF easements are held. And the Conservation Easement Act is the act under which privately held easements, such as ones owned by the Nature Conservancy, are held. So this says the use of the land shall conform to the comp plan, the use of the land as open space. So I think you're asking a good question, but I don't think, I agree with council. I don't think there's much risk of any locality asking the easement to be changed to reflect any comp plan changes, because it's the use of the land as open space, which it will continue to be used as. I hope. So it's existing language in the Open Space Land Act, if that helps.
Okay. You have anybody else who'd like to speak for or against it? All right, I guess we operate on motion. Well, it's my concern. I don't know what the implication is to potential tax credits on this. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but it seems to me that
Well, Mr. Chairman,
this could create some,
is it going to hurt anything if we put in that language at the time the easement is granted?
well, that's existing law. If you read the language that's being struck, they're striking that language and
Oh, yeah,
adding this
okay.
new language,
Okay,
which
okay. yeah.
it seems to me it's got to change every time a comp plan changes.
Would it be, since the patron is, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, perhaps make an amendment here, friendly amendment, keep it going, and maybe get it in a conference? And do-
Yeah, you want to put maybe a delayed enactment clause or something that give the patron a chance to explain this. We can work through it. You want to make that motion?
Yeah, I move that we add a reenactment clause.
I second that.
All right, everybody understand that? And that's just to keep it moving for the patron, and we can work through it on the floor or thereafter.
Ferris okay?
Excuse me?
Ferris okay?
He's not here.
That's not Ferris, by the way.
All right, motion to add an,
Unless he's on keto times 10, that is not Ferris. I mean, anybody else notice this?
He has more hair, Senator Stanton.
Is he okay? Is he okay?
He's feeling a little
motion to
poorly.
amend the bill. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Is there a motion? Motion properly seconded to report the bill. Please open the roll. Excuse me. Oh. Thank you. All right, Delegate Hodges.
All right.
you've got
11 ayes,
something
0
too.
nays.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's go with House Bill 2403, which is designed to improve stream and wetland mitigation by providing factors to be considered, including the avoidance of temporal loss when mitigation options are actually selected. And there are a number of those. We have the mitigation banks, money into the VARTA funds, and so forth. Now, Virginia Code does not currently contain a standard against which mitigation options should be judged, other than the achievement of no net loss of acreage and function. So House Bill 2403 adds factors to consider, including avoidance of temporal loss, and will help assure the most appropriate, cost-effective, and timely mitigation is selected. A number of folks have worked very hard on this bill. They've worked with the agency, and I think there's peace in the valley with everyone, Mr. Chairman.
So you're
There
just,
actually is.
you're just trying to get the best
Get the best
pieces you can get
Yes,
for
sir.
this purpose?
and to avoid that temporal loss and what's actually best in the long run for the environment.
All right, any questions? Do you have anyone who'd like to speak in favor of it? You don't have to, I'm just curious.
If I don't have to speak,
You support the bill. Any opposition to the bill? Is there a motion? Motion properly seconded to report the bill. Please open the roll. Okay,
10 ayes, 0 nays.
what's your next one?
House Bill 2783, Mr. Chairman, dealing with living shorelines.
2783.
Back in 2015, we had legislation that expanded the activities of the Virginia Water Facilities Revolving Loan Fund to allow the State Water Control Board to authorize low-interest loans to individuals, well, actually localities or for individuals for living shorelines, for water quality. This bill simply allows businesses, and actually small businesses in our rural coastal regions, in Middle Peninsula, Northern Neck, and Eastern Shore. We actually had a small campground that wanted to build a shoreline, could not access these funds. So it simply expands to just the small businesses and our water-based businesses, which are important to our economy.
Any questions of Delegate Hodges?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Mason.
why'd you call out bed and breakfasts, campgrounds, and why not just business?
We actually had the discussion for businesses, and they didn't, the concern in the House was for large businesses that could afford to build these living shorelines to not try to eat up all of these dollars. So we wanted to try to include our small businesses, which 98%, 99% of our businesses in our rural coastal region have access to these funds and for our water-based economy.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, sir.
Senator Marshall.
question. Could you give me just a couple of examples of what they would do to establish the business and what they would do to improve water quality?
Well, these are, living shorelines are the preferred method for our shorelines and protecting our shorelines for water quality, of course. I mean, that's actually, the General Assembly has decided that. And we have access to this revolving loan fund that's set up by the locality or PDC or whoever would set that up for individuals that currently would access those funds to build a living shoreline on their property. So this would allow businesses, so bed and breakfasts, working waterfronts, campgrounds, the smaller businesses in our rural coastal region to also have access to those funds.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Marshall.
in terms of that, you were talking about riparian efforts to protect runoff and these kinds of things, or does it go deeper than that?
Well, this is water quality initiative. Instead of hardening structures, to incentivize folks to have access to the funds for living shorelines instead of a hardening structure.
Okay.
To build the living shorelines.
So following up on Senator Mason's question, is it just these three categories of businesses that can access this? Is that what you intended, or is that?
Actually, yes, sir. In the House, they intended, and these are actually defined. Let me find where they are actually, have some notes here. Working waterfronts are defined in 15.2, 2201. Bed and breakfast and campgrounds and restaurants are defined in 35.1-1. And this covers probably 99% of our small businesses in our on our waterfronts at home.
Okay. Okay, do you have anybody who'd like to speak in favor of this? Anybody who'd like to speak in opposition? Did you want to speak in favor? Nobody? No opposition. Is there a motion? Motion properly seconded to report the bill. Please open the roll. Thank you, Delegate Hodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
12 ayes, 0 nays.
Delegate Head, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've got House Bill 2252.
2262.
52.
52, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Can't hear.
And 2252 tries to address an issue that was brought to me by a constituent who was hunting, and my understanding was on a parcel of land that was not his, but he never was going to deviate from that. But this was a parcel of land that straddled over multiple localities, and he ended up getting cited for violating a firearms ordinance because he inadvertently drifted from one to the other, one county to another, and the firearms ordinances had changed. One was rifle only, or was rifle, the other one was shotgun only. And there was not really any way to determine where you were. You knew where not to go to get off the property, but the municipal lines, unless you know right where those are, you can deviate from one to the other. And so what we are trying to bring forward is a remedy here that if a property owner, if you've got a parcel of land that is contiguous parcel of land that is in two different localities, that the property owner can leave it like it is, or could, by notifying the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries which one they wanted to cover, that if whatever the largest portion of that property is, that you could have that apply to the entire property. What we wanted to avoid, and the amendments got to that portion of it as we worked through the process, what we wanted to avoid and cover with this is, didn't think it was right if you've got 1,000 acres and 1 acre in one locality and 999 in another, that the 1 acre could prevail for all. So that's why we had the amendment to bring it to the largest portion and could prevail for the entire parcel. And that's, I think we can get some remedy with that. And DGIF, as we've worked through this, has been very helpful to say that they are anticipating coming this summer, before this would go into effect, the ability for their conservation police to be able to, with handheld devices, determine where lines are, what's the largest piece. They didn't see any problem with this. So.
Okay. Any questions the delegate had on this? Anyone you'd like to have speak in support of it? Is there any opposition to it? Were you getting up to speak? You don't have to. Don't want to deny you the opportunity if you want to.
I was going to say, I appreciate Delegate Head bringing this. This is actually for my father-in-law. He has a piece of land that straddles Roanoke and Franklin County, and there are no natural boundaries like a ridge line or a road or a stream or anything. It just kind of makes it difficult for a landowner who wants to stay in the right side of the law.
I understand. I used to duck hunt a piece of land that was very similar. We actually parked in one county and walked about 100 yards, and we were in another county hunting, and so I get it. Senator
So
Mason.
you've notified DGIF. Where will they categorize it, or, I mean, what will they do with the notification?
I would assume that they would just be able to let the conservation police know that they've been notified, or we'll have to let them sort that out. They didn't seem to have a problem with this being the language on it. So.
Did you work with the localities on this, Delegate Head?
We have not worked with the localities, but we haven't had any opposition.
They didn't object. Okay, okay. All right, is there a motion? Second. Motion properly seconded to report the bill. Please open the roll. Thank you, Delegate Head.
Okay, thank you.
11 ayes, 2 nays.
I'm going to let Stanley explain them on the floor. Delegate Levine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is HB 2642.
2642.
This is a bill that takes the animal cruelty statute, and it says that if it's against the law to
stab a dog or shoot a horse or
I think there's a substitute.
poison a parakeet.
Is
But
there a substitute?
yes, there is. I was going to explain
Well, let's
the
get the
history.
substitute
All right.
before us, and would you all please distribute substitute? Motion properly seconded to adopt substitute. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, is this the same as Senator Evans' bill now?
I think
It's a
close.
combination of Senator DeSteff's bill and my
Evans.
bill, which was also Senator Evans and Senator Stanley's bill. So with the substitute, all the bills have come together. None of them conflict with one another, but this puts it all in one package.
Will you explain it now?
Sure, okay.
Thank you.
So, well, my portion of the bill says that if you harm an animal in order to threaten someone in your family or household, my bill adds section G, which is line 167 and 168, which says any person who violates this section to coerce, intimidate, or harass a family or household member, it's a felony.
This has to go to finance.
And
Sorry. No, please keep
no,
going.
and that's because frankly, if you do that, you're not just harming an animal, you're threatening a person. So I think that this is something to make it a felony, because if you shoot your wife's pet, frankly, she knows that she may be next, and she may be very afraid. And so I would say these people need to be locked up before they harm humans. Now, Senator Steff's portion of the bill is to basically torture any dog or cat that's a companion animal. And that's the other part of the bill.
Delegate Levine, are you aware of any opposition?
No, we got lots of support, though.
Mr.
I
Chairman.
just want to know if there's any opposition. No opposition? John, are you standing up to oppose it, or? No. Okay. Is there a motion? Motion properly seconded to report the bill and refer to Senate Finance. Please open the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
Delegate Weber?
Mr. Chairman, how are you?
Good, how are you? What bill would you like to take
Doing all
up?
right. 2637?
2637.
Yep. Essentially, what the bill does is it conforms Virginia law to federal law by clarifying that the existing Virginia Water Facilities Revolving Fund may be used to provide low-interest loans and grants to both public and private borrowers for construction and agricultural BMPs, as well as like tree plantings and other things. So it just provides low-interest loans to farmers to input in BMPs.
Simple bill. Any questions? Any opposition? No opposition. Motion properly seconded to report the bill. Please open the roll. That's okay. Thank you,
13
Delegate
ayes, 0
Weber.
nays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Morefield. He is not here. Is he here? Okay, we'll pass him by. Delegate Stolley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2047.
House Bill 2047.
This is the consensus agreement from the Oyster Aquaculture Work Group that established a fair process to compensate
And so,
leaseholders.
Delegate Stolley, not to interrupt you, but I derailed this not intentionally last week because I wanted to make sure that in the process, if someone's oyster grounds were taken, there was a process for them to go to court to get relief, not just on the compensation, but on the actual take itself. Commissioner Bowman has very thoughtfully walked me through that, and I'm fine with the bill. I don't have any issues with it. Is there any opposition? I think everybody else was fine with it as well. Motion properly seconded to report the bill. Please open the roll.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you, Delegate Stolley. Thank you. All right, let me see who's next here. Delegate Lopez is next.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Good afternoon.
HB 2395. There is an amendment.
I can read that, Mr.
Can you
Chairman.
report that amendment, please, Dave?
Yep, it's just one line amendment, and it's on line 18 after the word site. Inserting a new sentence that reads, however, the department shall only disclose in the inventory information that is not otherwise excluded from the mandatory disclosure provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act.
Mr. Chairman, I was happy to work with industry, the waste management
Hold on
folks,
one
and also.
second. There's a motion and
Oh.
a second to adopt that amendment. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Okay, I think everybody understands the amendment. Now tell us about the bill.
Mr.
Delegate
Chairman,
Lopez.
this bill creates a hazardous waste site, one-stop inventory that's publicly accessible for citizens and regulators in Virginia. It'll have basic information about each site, including the location, the nature of the waste disposed at each of the sites, and then the status of any remedial or corrective action undertaken or planned for the site. As I said, it's fairly straightforward. It's just putting some information in one place that folks have who can have access to it if they wish. Like as I said, I was happy to have worked with the waste management folks, business community, and also Brett Vassy, who's been working with me on some of the finer points.
Okay. Any questions of Delegate Lopez? Is there any opposition to this?
No, sir, or not that it's come to me.
Is there a motion? Motion properly seconded to report the bill. Please open the roll.
Thirteen ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you,
Thank
Delegate
you, Mr.
Lopez.
Chairman.
Delegate Bulova.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is House Bill 1822.
House Bill 1822.
Yes, sir. And so this bill is designed to do two things. The first is to provide the Department of Environmental Quality with a little additional flexibility with regard to point source nutrient reduction grants. And so right now, in order to get one of those grants, it has to be a physical upgrade at the plant itself. There are actually some localities and authorities that have discovered that they can actually more cost efficiently make reductions by diverting some of the wastewater from one plant to another that's more efficient, and this just makes it permissive so DEQ can consider that. The other one is to give DEQ a little bit better information on the needs that are driving some of the funding requests for stormwater and wastewater, and so this is patterned off of the agricultural BMP needs assessment that is very, very valuable with regard to where we stand in terms of funding versus the need. This would just have DEQ engage in a similar process for stormwater and wastewater. They are supportive of doing this, and so they can absorb it into their existing staff resources.
Is this an agency bill?
Actually, it's not. This was brought to me by the Virginia Association of Stormwater Management Agencies and the wastewater folks.
Is Dave Paler in here? You okay with this? Any questions of Delegate Bulova? Is there any opposition to this? Is there a motion? Motion properly seconded to report the bill. Please open the roll.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you, Delegate Bulova.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Moorfield is not here.
He's in there. You want me to grab him?
Yeah, let's get him. And then Chad or Dave or Scott or anyone, there's only one other bill. Is that Delegate Jones's bill after that? Oh, Delegate Ranson and Jones, okay. Yeah, okay.
Mr.
Delegate
Chairman.
Moorfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good afternoon.
Good
evening.
afternoon.
Okay, we have House Bill 2687, which would authorize the Board of Game and Inland Fisheries to create a special license to hunt elk. And I do have an amendment to offer.
All right, would you?
I'm sorry, a substitute.
Would you like to have staff report that?
Yes, please.
Dave, will you want to report that amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. It's just one line amendment on line 12. After the word "in," strike the remainder of line 12 and through Commonwealth on line 13. So that would strike the phrase designated areas of the Commonwealth, and then in its place insert the phrase an elk management zone designated by the department.
All right, so what does that do?
Mr. Chairman, Basically, what the amendment would do is it would just restrict the issue of special license to the designated zones, elk management zones in Virginia. And currently, we have 3, Buchanan County, Dickinson County, and Wise County. In 2012, there was an effort, or at the beginning of an effort, to reintroduce elk into Virginia. They've currently been very successful in rebuilding or building the population. There were 71 elk released. Currently, there are 200 in Virginia, and the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation has spent $1.7 million alone in this investment to reintroduce elk, and that doesn't include the amount of private investment from people in Southwest Virginia, and then also the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries. And so this has been very successful in Kentucky, and we realize there are...
Let me ask you,
Yes,
Delegate
sir.
Moorfield, is this an amendment that everybody embraces to make this a happy bill, just out of curiosity?
Mr. Chairman, I was hoping that it would be, but I think that there's not general consensus, at least from some of the groups that are here today, that this amendment would satisfy everyone.
All right, well, let me ask this question. Is there anybody that's going to move that amendment?
If I could just explain the amendment just briefly.
Absolutely.
Okay. The purpose of the amendment is to specifically allow for the creation within these zones. So, as you know, Southwest Virginia is extremely distressed. Buchanan County specifically has one of the highest poverty rates in Virginia, similar to the city of Petersburg, roughly 28%. And so over the past several years, we have made a number of efforts to diversify the economy. And it's our hope that introducing elk back into the area, that instead of people going out west and spending thousands of dollars on big game hunts, that they'll eventually come to Virginia. And so what this does is it sets up a process, and it gives the department the discretion to eventually establish the issue of these special tags. And so in Kentucky, it's been very successful. Just to give you a few figures, the average elk hunter spends roughly $3,100 in Kentucky, and they've generated roughly $783,000 in fees from those tags. And so we were hopeful that the committee would be supportive of this, especially due to the economics distressed circumstances that we're faced with in Southwest Virginia.
I understand, Delegate Moorfield. I don't know much about elk hunting. I've hunted just about everything else, and I sort of have to rely on the folks from Southwest Virginia to address that. But is there a motion on the amendment or no? There does not appear to be a motion on the amendment, Delegate Moorfield.
I'll move the amendment.
All right, there's a motion properly seconded to adopt the amendment. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. I think the ayes had it. Okay. All right, now the bill is before us as amended. Are there any questions of Delegate Moorfield? I think he's explained what it does. Do you have anybody who'd like to speak in favor of it?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right, please come up.
Well, Mr. Chairman, committee members, I'm Danny Smedley. I'm a volunteer with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, chairman of the Bull Run chapter in Virginia, and involved in the release of elk in Kentucky and assisting there also with the release of elk in Virginia. This is a tool that will allow the game department to manage the elk going forward. But currently, as the management plan is under review, and this is one of the tools the game department needs to effectively manage this elk herd. Similar laws have existed in Kentucky, and the Kentucky herd is right on the Virginia border. We've also released elk over into West Virginia the last 2 years. So I think it's very important that the Game Commission have the tools to effectively manage this herd. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in favor? Are there those that would like to speak in opposition? Do a motion, yeah.
Mr.
Just don't let
Chairman,
me
members
forget,
of the
okay?
committee, my name is Emily Edmondson. I operate Fisher Cove Farm in Tazewell County, Virginia. I have 300 cow-calf pairs. I am opposed to the elk, but I have come to find that the elk are in our region. The DGIF called for a plan. They came out to our part of the state. We did a stakeholder groups, and I was part of that. And then they called for a plan to be developed, and I was chosen to be one of 17 people on this plan. We worked for 2 years on it. We worked together with people, representatives from the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and from other stakeholder groups. We have developed a plan. We came to a lot of consensus and compromise to come up with this plan. It doesn't, I guess, please everybody, but we worked very, very hard. In January, the plan was to be presented to the DGIF. We were kindly invited, members of the committee that had worked on this, to show up. At the very last moment, they canceled or they transferred it to another day. However, when I was also in Richmond for Legislative Day at the Capitol with the Farm Bureau, and I found out about Delegate Moorfield's bill. And to me, it is an attempt at an end run around this planning process. The planning process, we worked very, very hard. I attended every single meeting. I've learned that these people, and I understand their ups and downs and all the rest of it, and it's important that I'm running out of time.
Yes, and if you would just wind up quickly, because there are other folks who'd like to speak, and I'll let them speak as well, but if you could just finish up.
Let this plan be presented, adopted, hopefully, and implemented. It's only a 10-year plan, and it's a good thing, and it's a very hot subject back in our neck of the woods, but this is a way to handle and manage the elk. So please oppose this bill.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. And again,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Stephanie Kitchen with Virginia Farm Bureau. I want to start by thanking the patron for listening to our concerns on this issue, but I do want to echo Ms. Evanson's thoughts and comments on the fact that this is just not the right time for this. The plan calls for investigating the feasibility of a special elk license, and we are open to that, but we need to let the process work. So thank you.
thank you. Yes, sir.
Jason Carter, Virginia Cattlemen's Association. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we also participated as stakeholders in the working group plan, had individuals involved for 2 years, as she described. The elk population presents opportunity, but it also presents significant health concerns for the cattle industry. Those are addressed in this plan, along with hunting in the future, the feasibility of that. And the plan's very important. We encourage the plan to be heard and adopted as it was intended and allow the process to proceed from there.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else who wants to register their opposition? All right, if not, are there questions? Would you like to finish up, Delegate Moorfield?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just to follow up on a couple of points that were made earlier. Remember, the amendment that was adopted applies specifically to the management zone. There are no cattle, or let me restate that there are very few cattle in those counties. In fact, in the 10 years that I've served in the body, I've never seen more than 10 head of cattle in Buchanan County. So the statement that this could be threatening to a cattle population is just, I think, a little overstated because—
Delegate Moorfield, is a real issue that you've got a group in the community and they've all been working on it, trying to come up with a plan that works for the community, and that plan has not been adopted yet, and so folks kind of think this is premature until they've worked all those issues out. Is that a fair summary?
Mr. Chairman, it is, but it was related to me that they have worked for some time on this plan, and that the hope was that if this legislation were to pass, it would give them a mechanism for when they do adopt a plan, which they are telling me they are adopting the plan in their March meeting to start the process. The elk herd is only 200. This just simply gives DGIF the discretion to eventually set up a process where they can establish the sale of these elk tags and bring the necessary attention that we're hoping that this will get. So we're just concerned with the fiscal situation in Southwest Virginia, that each year that we continue to kick these opportunities down the road, it puts a tremendous burden not only on the region, but eventually Richmond and other areas as well. So.
Okay, thank you, Delegate Moorfield. Any other questions of the delegate? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Chafin.
Yes, sir. So I've had discussions with Delegate Moorfield, and I share his desire for this elk herd to grow and to be both from a tourism and recreation standpoint as well as a sporting standpoint. I want it to be a success. I talked with him about the idea. I didn't think, having talked with some of the committee members, I didn't think that it was going to be the will of this committee to put the bill out today. And I talked with him about the opportunity of having a letter from the chairman that would direct it back to this study group of 17 individuals, which is also the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries is involved with, and that it be mandated for them to develop this plan and also develop it within a certain time frame and develop this concept of the tags, when the elk tags would be used, at least in, or would be available, at least within that zone, within the three-county zone that we're talking about here. So I talked with Delegate Moorfield about that concept to try to get this thing off of, he's got a great idea trying to get it off the start, trying to get it off the start and making this happen and make all those people come together. And so I think that's where it needs to go. And that should be reported back to you from this study group within a certain period of time. I don't know what Delegate Moorfield's idea is about that time frame. I'd like to hear that.
Yep, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Moorfield.
As I said, that there is a plan, according to the representatives that I've had conversations with, to adopt a plan in March. And so I think that obviously it would be at the discretion of the chairman or the committee as to what that deadline should be. My personal opinion is I would probably set that deadline of no more than 1 year, obviously. And so, of course, we would gladly accept something much sooner. But we have a lot of people, tremendous vested interest that strongly support this. I would not be up here supporting this legislation if I did not think the majority of people overwhelmingly in Southwest Virginia, farmers and non-farmers, support this endeavor.
Okay. And so what I hear is, I guess I hear Senator Chafin making a motion to pass the bill by indefinitely with a letter to the work group and a report. Is that correct?
I believe that the report ought to be back certainly before the General Assembly convenes again next year, is what I think.
Is this a private group?
There's a plan, a draft of a plan that's out there. I had a hard time getting it. DGIF would not give it to me. I had a hard time getting it, but I did get a copy of it.
Who's leading the group?
Mr. Chairman,
Is DGIF leading it?
we do have DGIF here. It may be appropriate to direct that letter to DGIF. I think they are, as the official state agency that's working with the group, or the only state agency that's working with the group.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just
Senator Morrison.
very quickly, nobody's worked harder at economic development for Southwest Virginia than Delegate Moorfield, and I hope this letter gets things, off the dime, and that this herd can grow, and that we can start bringing people in there. And I just appreciate him always thinking out of the box and always trying to get these things done.
Okay. Is that a second?
That's a second.
Right. Motion.
So the date
Senator
that
Chafin.
would come back would be no later than, say, December 1?
Well, we can certainly request that, Senator Chafin.
Let's request that.
Back to the Committee on the Senate Committee on Agriculture,
sir.
Conservation, Natural Resources, and the House Committee as well. Okay, motion properly seconded to pass the bill by indefinitely with a letter to Game and Inland Fisheries as described. Please open the roll.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
Okay, you've got it moving, Delegate Morefield,
All
I
right,
think.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Delegate Ranson had House Bill 1874, and we've actually been advised that she would like to have her bill rolled into the Levine et al. Bill, which was, I can't remember. 2642? Okay. So is there a motion? All right, there's a motion, Senator Marsden, Senator Obenshain seconds, to reconsider the vote by which we reported and re-referred Senate Bill 2642. Please open the roll.
Fifteen ayes, 0
That's what
nays.
she asked. That's what she asked. What she asked. Okay, at the request of the patron, we have to have a motion to do that. I guess we have to have a motion to do that, yeah. All right, Senator Marsden moves and Senator Dance seconds, rolling House Bill 1874 into Levine's 2642 and listing her as a chief co-patron. We have to have a vote on that too, don't we? Please open the roll.
All right, 14 ayes, 1 nay.
All right, is there a motion to report the bill and re-refer to Senate Finance? Motion properly seconded to report the bill and re-refer to Senate Finance. Please open the roll. All right, and then.
15 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you. And then the only other thing we have is Delegate Jones's bill, and I have been advised that we're going to try to work on that some more. Delegate Jones is not coming. Is that correct? We're going to let this go by for the day and take this up later, maybe at the desk in another day or so as we can work through this bill. So with that, I think that completes our docket.
Yeah, they're good.
That finish our docket? Okay, and we're going to leave that bill alive in the committee. All right, thank you.